down, and Jim and I were talking to each other and having a great time, but nobody else was listening. So we're these sort of agile, lean kind of people who can move in the grey. So we'll start again.
Nothing phases me.
So fantastic to have Jim Benson with me. The Collaboration Equation, Jim's great new book. Of course, you all know him from Personal Calm Balm, which is also a fantastic book. But today we're talking more about in the collaboration space. And Jim, I really want to get into how you wrote the book around collaboration. As I said, when no one was listening to us, was that, Gene Tabaka wrote, collaboration book, and nobody really tackled a book around that for, some time. And given everything that's happened in the last 3 years, et cetera, I think it's more poignant than ever. Now, what I love about it, having read the book, there's lots of things we could talk about, but I want to orient around the 5 principles. And now I'm going to have to quote them off again, right? So let's go. Pay attention. Give a damn. Improvement is your job. Information drives action. And, of course, my favorite, is trust but visualize.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to you about why you're oriented around those 5 principles.
Well, so work is everything. And that doesn't mean that everything is our jobs, like what we get paid for. But work is human endeavor. It's why we wake up in the morning. It's what we're interested in. It's what we're excited to do. And when I had to come up with some principles, originally I came up with like 36 principles because it incorporated everything about human existence.
Yeah.
And so it kind of boiled them down. And so we'll just look at really quickly the trust but visualize. That one in particular, there's a lot going on, behind those 3 kind of simple words. It's not like I'm trusting you, but I'm not going to trust you if I can't see what you're doing. It's that we understand stories, we understand systems, but things have a lot of moving parts. And if we can't see what's going on, we start to invent our own stories. So if you start off trusting somebody, even if you trust them completely, if what they're doing is always hidden from you, you will stop trusting them. So, but visualize isn't a threat. It's actually an active condition that must exist in order for trust to continue. Especially in an office setting now where we've got so many things going on and people are spread out all over the place.
The thing I love about the principles, I have this particular saying, and any of my friends who are watching this always go bingo, but and it's the collaborative connective tissues of the organization is the way I talk about it, right? It's that information flow both horizontally and vertically that allow you to do those things, that pay attention, give a damn, to be able to have that information that drives action. And then that trust but visualize really binds those, is the way I see it. And that's the way I see you talk about it in the book. Talk to me a bit about that.
Well, so one of the biggest problems that I see people trying to solve in Agile especially is dependencies. And dependencies are just simply breakdowns in those connective tissues that you were just talking about. You don't have appropriate communication. You don't have appropriate collaborative planning. But what you do have is a bunch of agile teams, which are actually silos, pretending to be individual units when the work is requiring them to collaborate. So when we approach problems like that, so again, there's the trust but visualize part of that, but then there's also the give a damn part of it, where people are like, I've got this work and it requires this other team, but I don't really give a damn. They've just got to get me their part of it, and they better do it or I'm going to be mad at them. That's not caring about your work, your product, or the people that you're working with. So that's what I want to see in companies. I want to see a collaboration across the organization, so that when work requires us to collaborate, it's not extra work and it's not seen as a weird thing. We've actually set up systems to do that.
It's interesting. Everybody talks about that. So in my experience, and I've been talking backwards and forwards with you. I worked it out the other day. It's almost over a decade. Been talking backwards and forwards with you for a long time, and you will have seen the same things as me, is that you see organizations talk about a culture of collaboration. Or a culture of transparency, right? But one of the quotes that I am going to read this off, so that came from the book that I circled was, without understanding your culture, you'll never obtain a culture of continuous improvement. But I think that also goes to collaboration and trust as well.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about what you see in that and why that's the case.
People, no one, no one that I've met has been trained to build a culture. But we've all been trained to talk about culture a lot. And generally what culture comes down to is what box of help have we bought? Have we bought the lean box of health or the help or agile or safe or whatever? But no one's actually saying, what do we as a group of people on this particular project or in this particular company, what do we need in order to be the best professionals we can? To help each other out, to cross-train, to build things, to solve problems, to not freak out when something changes. And so when we're building a culture and we are understanding a culture, we actually do have to know what it is and maintain it. So when we build any visual controls in online or live, those visual controls are providing information about the culture first and the product second.
I like that because it's going to flow very nicely into what we're going to talk about very shortly, which is the other thing that we noted is obeyas, because obeyas plays into that. There is an interesting quote. Now, I don't often flash them up on the screen, but I like this one. So we're just going to throw this up from Tim. True collaboration requires trust. Sometimes trust takes time. That goes with what we're just talking about, because we always hear about a culture of trust. But often the culture of trust is betrayed by the fact that the visualization is not used as visualization for trust. It's used as visualization for many other things, and usually holding people to account, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're doing. Thoughts?
So I'm of two minds about this. We're very good at undermining the relationships in companies that we or agencies or any other groups of people that we come up with. We develop dysfunctional patterns of information hoarding that we call leadership. And we basically make actual leadership illegal, which is when somebody sees something that needs to happen, they should act. As opposed to saying, oh, I'm not touching that, which is what happens most of the time. So when Tim says that trust takes time, it's not the trust that's taking any time. Trust can literally happen in less than a second. I'm in a burning car. You show up and you stick your hand out. I am going to trust you. I'm not going to wait and see how you interact with other people but no, the situation is such that I will trust you immediately. But there's a system there. I'm about to burn to death, and there's a person there who's going to stop that from happening. When we set up, I'll put this a different way. When we come up with different weird bottlenecks that we don't think of as bottlenecks, trust disappears almost immediately. And those bottlenecks are going to be decision-making bottlenecks, information flow bottlenecks, responsibility bottlenecks, where we've identified individuals as owning our agency. When someone else owns our agency, we are going to trust nearly no one because we don't have a system to do it. But we've all seen people immediately trust other people because the situation allows for it.
Yeah, that sort of flows into another one. I pulled a few out and circled them. So if you see me scrolling to the left, that's what I'm up to, Jim. And it does roll into something that you've said in the book, which is, freedom is a system that allows you to act with confidence and gives you information that you need when you need it. There's further to that, but the
Right.
reality of that is that flows into that ability to truncate the trust, right?
And so that's the second part of so the book starts off with a story that ends with the punchline that the person in the story, Kevin, was able to act with confidence. And in this story, Kevin self-reports to a bunch of people who aren't me that the system that we've set up allows him to act with confidence. And that was very powerful for me, not because it's a cool statement, but because it was the first time that I actually realized that most systems don't allow people to act with confidence. And then we reward people who are able to work in spite of the system that we've set up, rather than just setting up a system that allows everybody to excel in the first place.
It's interesting, and I think that goes back to give a damn and well, both give a damn and improvement is your job.
Mm-hmm.
And they link into that intrinsically as well, right? Because if you don't give a damn and improvement is in your job, then we're just trundling along doing whatever the hell someone tells us to do, right?
So the give a damn thing came during a cab ride across New York City, where a general manager at Turner Construction had just gone through several days of, we'll just call it traditional lean training. So A3s and Genji Genbutsu and stuff. And we're riding in the cab or in the Uber on the way back to the office. And he says to me, he says, "What's the one thing that I should do in order to be a good lean leader?" And it's construction. So I said, "Just give a shit." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Give a shit about everything. About the quality of the project, about the materials that are being used, about the architecture, about whoever is the level ones working on that particular project." And he's like, "Well, I do, I try my best to do that." And I'm like, "Okay, well then, if you want to be a lean leader, then do better." and 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 it's what I love about that, about giving a damn, is that it's not. So at Turner, they actually use the phrase active caring, which is a nice term, but I want it to go deeper than that. I want you to actually like really, really give a damn, where it's like, I am going to invest myself into the success of fill in the blank. And once anyone gets to that point for real and they're in a system that doesn't undermine that desire, they will solve problems before they start nonstop. So we're in this constant state of continuous improvement failure demand, where we're desperately trying to solve problems that have already happened or already festered, when we could solve them before they ever started. But somebody has to be able to care enough to want to do that.
Is there a balance between somebody has to care enough, which is I agree totally with you, but what I also see then is that their way of caring about it is they put somebody in charge of continuous improvement. It's your job to make it happen, right?
Okay, so I didn't say give a delegation. I didn't say buy a vowel. No, you have to do the work. And this is why people buy boxes of Agile or boxes of Lean or boxes of Kanban or boxes of pills, is because they just want the pain to go away, but they don't actually want to do the work.
And I think
I'm sorry, but life requires work.
yeah, well, that was sort of what I was sort of interjecting there. Was I think the reality of it is no matter what you do in an organisation, and indeed what you said, life is it does. There's no silver bullet, right? And there are particular frameworks, we'll leave it alone out there, that agile ones that do profess to be able to put everything in place that'll fix your problem. We all know that's not the case. Nice one there from Dave Hill. I will pop that up on screen because we're only using a few of them. But build systems that encourage and allow people to focus on process quality. Thoughts, Jim?
So this is what I want. I want to caveat that by saying that process is the instantiation of your culture. Process is not the systematic creation of a widget. It is the relationships, the codified relationships between the people who are involved in making that widget. Yeah. So any value stream that you come up with has things flow. Well, it's flowing between people. And if we stick with that, that process is either something that's predetermined, or that process is something that is logical because it just flows between these objects, we're always going to miss the real bottlenecks, which are the bottlenecks of communication between those human beings. We can set up a beautiful workflow system between design and coding and testing and integration and blah, 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 blah. But they're always going to fall down because the human beings that actually need the information aren't going to get that because the process is focused on the mechanics and not the humanity. And I'm not saying just, this person loves this person who then feeds this person who hugs that person. Because when people go to work, the thing that they want to do is work. So when people are like, get out of here because I just want to get my work done, it's not because they hate you. Yeah. It's because there's work to be done. And so if we can remove as much of the impediments in getting that work done, the relationships between the people become better.
Yeah. There's an old lean saying that I always gravitate towards when you're designing these, and I'm not going to get on the bandwagon too much because that's not what we're going to talk about in total today. But value streams and flow are the buzzwords at the moment, right? And I'm often driven to want to say, I don't think you actually know what that word means. But anyway, the other piece that goes with it is if you're going to do that, what I see is these value streams get concocted, but they forget about how that connects to the rest of the organization. But like you said, it's also about how it interacts with the people. So, close in person, place, and time, right? Mm-hmm. Dealing with the people who are closest to the work, who at their time the work gets done, and understand how it gets done, because they're the people who can actually help you make that flow.
The beauty of every value stream mapping exercise that I've ever had is the emotion. That's where if I go in and I do a value stream mapping exercise that comes out completely perfect with a completely logical way of building something, but at some point no one is staring shocked at the wall or bursts into tears or laughs or says, "Oh my God, I never knew," then that was an unsuccessful value stream mapping exercise. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what it is. I've done them for heavy industry. I've done them for software. Done them for, hospitals. You name it. We've done a ridiculous number of value stream maps for now, and all of the tools that we have, we deploy very discriminately. Like, this group needs this particular tool, except value stream mapping. It's pretty much the only universal tool that we've found, and that includes Kanban. That includes personal Kanban. Value stream mapping is more universal than personal Kanban.
Yeah, I agree.
But only if you're mapping the relationships. If you're just focused on the flow of work, Willy Wonka is going to lock you in a room or try and kill you with a fan or something.
I like it. All right, we sort of went tangential, but that's what happens when you and I get together anyway. So I'll bring us back towards the collaboration piece, and it sort of links into everything we've been talking about, trust and visualization. So the other thing we want to talk about, which both of us are very passionate about, and I know you have a great passion for it, which is obeyers. So now I'm not going to go and explain what obeyers are. If you're watching this, I assume that you have the basic understanding of obeyers. So we'll work on that premise. I want to talk to you about how obeyas should be used and how you construct good obeyas, because as we were talking about off air, obeyas get used for a lot of things they probably shouldn't be. And then they get overused for things that they should be, but not used well. So there's a real balance with them. So firstly, talk to me about where obeya sits for you in the collaboration space and the visualization and trust space.
I have not seen a successful project that wasn't in some way visualized, regardless of what it was part of. And I got my start in it before this, but the big thing for me was way back when, during the AIDS crisis. For a decade, I ran the Northwest region of the NAMES Project AIDS Memorial Quilt. So I was an administrator, if you will, but I oversaw the world's largest memorial and the world's largest public art project to this day. It hasn't been outdone yet, for better or for worse. And the power of that was entirely because it was so visual and so big and so poignant that it caused action. So we were able to take chunks of the quilt to Mormon temples, to very conservative sororities, to places that you would not expect to be able to go and talk about those things. But the function of the visualization was so deep, so moving, and so undeniable that you had to pay attention to it. And so weirdly enough, I'm gonna share my screen because it's what I do. Here's and a lot of you who have hoping this is the right screen. There we go. Yeah, a lot of you have seen a lot of these images before, but there are some things here that I want to point out. So we'll just kind of zoom in over here. So this one here is in a restaurant in Massachusetts, and this is like basically how to run the front and the back of the house. It's a football field with a bunch of different plays at the bottom of it and different people doing different things throughout the day. There were things that they're doing. There's a pen here for things that are waiting and so forth, so on and so forth. But that's this. This is at a makerspace in Louisville, Kentucky, where it's a makerspace, and they make like refrigerators, appliances. It's a makerspace for frickin' appliances. So right now, if you go online and Facebook shows you an ad for there's a couple things out there. One makes crushed ice, and the other one, like the best crushed ice in the world, and the other one is a thing that lets you grow mushrooms. Both of those things were made at First Build here, and they have copious visualizations. This is a visualization for a large construction project. But this is the one that I'll talk about, and then I'll shut up about it for a moment. So when we think about obeyas, we tend to think of permanent objects in the obeya, or semi-permanent, that are showing us the status of something as it unfolds, right? So let's say you've got a Kanban up there, and the Kanban never leaves. It's just got tickets flowing through it. Or if you got some other thing showing stuff. This is a pull planning exercise. And if you buy the collaboration equation for no reason at all, buy it to read about this, because this is the thing that will save software development. And software development is literally on the ropes at the moment. We need some serious help. So at a pull planning exercise, what happens is you get together all of the trades that are going to be working in a building over the next 6 weeks. So this woman's working for the structural steel vendor. There was a concrete person there and a couple of others. And what we did was we just created an extremely detailed backward planning value stream map where we went, what happens, then what happens before that, then what happens before that, then what happens before that, blah, 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 blah. And then as we went along, where there were dependencies, we solved them before they were a problem because we could see them coming. And no less than 5 times I went into one with people who hadn't done one before. And they're like, I don't want to be here. I hate these people. Just give me my money. Just tell me what to do. I know how to do my job. I don't need to talk to anybody. And they would get all pissy about things. And then we'd run into one of these things where there was a problem and we'd solve it in like 3 minutes. And instantly those people are like, oh my God, you just did something I've never seen in like 35 years of construction. And weirdly enough, what happens then? Trust. We created the system to visualize, we solved a problem, trust, and then trust broke out. Who would have guessed? So all of that is a very long way of saying for me that visualization is the primary means of communicating difficult information to other human beings. And if work isn't visualized, it will be verbalized, and it will not be verbalized in a functional or structural or polite way. So if we want to keep our working world collaborative, on the same page, aligned, whatever words we want to use, we've got to use an obeya.
What I love about it is, so I talk to organizations a lot, Jim, about, and we were talking again off here, about governance is a big thing for me, and governing the system of work. When I talk about governance, not just PMOs and projects, right? But it's how you govern the entire system of work. But if you're going to govern the entire system of work, you need to be able to visualize it in a way that people can understand the interactions and the information that they need to be able to govern. And for me, obeya plays that part if it's done properly.
Yep. And so there's this issue then. So you go into a group, and let's say that you're working with a normal company. So you have a group of 18 people. You've completely broken the pizza box rule. And because
it does, by the way.
Yeah, because that's what real life does. Real life is a group of people that needs to be as big as it needs to be, not to satisfy your arbitrary number and spurious math.
Right.
So not that I have any opinions about this.
We could go for that. We'll come back to this.
So in that construction project that I just showed, we had teams of hundreds of people, yet we were still able to communicate.
Yeah.
And the only way you can communicate that way is visually. And then the other thing about that is that you have different people who are like into it, not into it, excited, hostile, sad, mad, glad, afraid. You've got all of the things, right? And so the question is, can you build a set of visual systems that are, again, like the quilt, so undeniable that you have to pay attention to them? So the beauty of that project that I showed the room for was that it had a fixed budget and a fixed schedule, and it had to be done on time and on budget, which is pretty much impossible for a building of that size. It was a massive hospital project. And so all decisions that needed to be made had to be made in front of some visual representation of the decision being made, whether it was having an impact on time, on budget, on scheduling, on staffing, whatever that might be. And that focus was key for making that system work. And where I find that I run into the most problems is where people don't give a damn.
Yeah, so it plays back into that. I like that, because that flows into the next question I had for you, right? People don't give a damn. What?
I am Mr. Segway.
Yeah, well, you are indeed today. Anti-patterns. So don't give a damn is obviously one of those anti-patterns, right? But there are a bunch of other anti-patterns when you're putting together obeyas, and I'm really interested because you build many of these. Talk to me about what you see are the big anti-patterns.
Well, it's just kind of like the principles. There's so many of them. But the first thing that I see, there's a sweet spot of information that you're searching for. Basically, what is the information that your team, either you're part of the team or the entire team, what is the information that those professionals need to know in order to act with confidence? And I routinely see people build obeyas that offer much less or much more information than the people need, both of which kill the obeya pretty much immediately, either by overfeeding or starvation. And so how do you find that balance?
Yeah.
You might ask. Well,
look, now you're taking my job.
Anyway. That's what I was going to say. That's why you have to hire us. But the bigger thing about that is that people seem to think that a huddle or a stand-up meeting is about discussing status, but is actually discussing about a particular type of status, which is, are you informed? So people are like, my stand-up meetings go on too long. It's like, that's because you've got information that you haven't visualized and people need to talk about it. So listen to what's being talked about and then say, can we put a board up about this? Can we put some sort of graphic representation, a dashboard, whatever? But that work that's being discussed is information that either needs to get out or get in. It's either being pushed or requested. Mm-hmm. But either way, there is a constituency that feels like that information is not being exchanged, and they're using your stand-up meeting or your huddle to do that. That's your fault. So when we're looking for the right balance of what goes into the obeya, we need to watch for the information that is and is not available, and then make sure that that information is available. So like, one of the things about now, where people can't put Post-it notes on a wall because they're sitting in their basement and everybody else is sitting in basements around the world, that we increasingly build our obeyas in iObeya or in Miro, and those are the only two tools at the moment that we found that even remotely work for this. One of the major things that we're tracking on there is links.
Yeah.
So you're working on this project right now. Here are the 5 active documents in Google Docs. This is the active space in Confluence that's being worked on, blah, 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 blah. But whatever those things are, we lose them on a regular basis. And then people spend so much of their time in Slack saying, where is the blank?
Yeah.
Right. So watch for that as well. Watch for that as well. I could go on about other anti-patterns, but I will literally just talk for the rest of the.
The other one is, it's my obeya. I own it. I'm in charge of it. I have to make decisions on what goes on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've seen that one.
Well, or the one that says like, so other projects at Turner that I had, I would help them set up a board, and then or a room. And then I would leave and I'd come back and nothing would have changed, but they were dying to get into the room to tell me what to put on the board. I did not ask for that gift. And I kept telling them, this isn't mine, it's yours. But people are when people don't have that trust, they're also unwilling to take responsibility.
Yeah.
And then what happens is we get caught in that trap where people are like, I'm going to hold you accountable for this. Well, why in the hell would I ever need to be held accountable for anything? And the reason is because it's not getting done. And you're telling me that every time something gets done, it's because of a person? I have my doubts. I have a feeling there's a person who, the moment I go to them, they'll say, "Oh God, I've been trying to get this done, but,"
Yeah.
and then the system lives in all those buts.
The other one I see that creates those buts too, because often when you're building obeyers, you're working with leaders, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and the question that I ask them, because so the question they ask me is, well, what do I need to put on there? And my answer back to them will be, well, okay, what do you need to decide? How do you need to decide? When do you need to decide? And who needs to decide? And what's the information that allows you to actually decide?
Mhm.
So thinking about the decisions that you need to make, what's the information that you need to be able to find very quickly that allows you
Mhm.
to make those kind of decisions? Leadership to me plays a very big part in obeyers, but sometimes they tend to step back from it and just give that focus to someone other than
Mhm.
themselves. Do you see that?
Yeah. So, yeah, I would add to that. Why do you need to decide?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who died and made you the only professional in the entire company? So that if there is a bottleneck of decision making, decisions will always be costly. They will always come late, and they will always require a burden of proof that is not commensurate with the problem.
Yeah.
So the when we say, or when Lean says, to push decisions down to the lowest possible level, Tony Ann and I say distribute information amongst the team, or distribute decision making amongst the team. The team should know, this is our culture. This is what we're building. This is the level of risk of the decision that I'm making. I can make this determination on my own and feel good about it. I need to talk to some other people. We need to talk to everybody. But what it should never be is, I need Vice President Bill to allow this $5 purchase, because it's, yeah, that's the thing that kills all of these other decisions. People are like, if you don't trust me with that little decision, why should I make one at all? So leadership is something that I believe is an activity that is taken on by everyone on a team, and that management often involves people who have more leadership opportunities than others, but it does not mean that they are the only people capable of leadership. So when we go in, this happens all the time. We'll have a right environment exercise, or we'll have a value stream mapping exercise, or we'll be doing some work, and this leader will hire us, and then we start the project, and they introduce us and then leave.
Yes.
And we're like, where the hell are you going? And they're like, well, I want them to be able to speak frankly. And it's like, so you're telling me you created a system in which they can't speak frankly around you? Maybe you should stick around. We should talk about that. Let's solve that first. Yeah, we can get together with these people and let them bitch about you behind your back for a couple of days if that makes you feel strangely better. But how about we all get together and figure out why you have a culture where you feel like leaders aren't part of why management is not part of the team. And when management is not part of the team, by default, that creates those information and decision-making bottlenecks that make the team unsuccessful, and then make the managers be even more micromanagers. And then it's a downward spiral until people quit and go to another job and say, oh shit, it's happening here too.
I think, look, that goes back to the principle we started out with today, which is trust and visualize, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I wanted to do the loop, because it goes back to why that is so important in terms of what you're doing. Now, just before we jump into it, there's been a lot of commentary going on in the background here, and there's one. When you said it, I knew they weren't going to let you off with this, Jim. So this particular one, I'd love to hear more about software development's current time of trouble and what are the primary challenges. Take your pick. When you said that, I knew that we were going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's who let Jocko in here? All right, so there it is. I see it in the list now. Take your pick. That's right. So we have given away So how do I want to approach this? I always get put into this situation where it seems like I'm like the biggest agile basher in the world. But a long time ago, George Orwell said that any revolution comes to resemble that which they overthrew. And now there's like no difference between big market agile and what we chose to overthrow. It's a bunch of rules that people have to follow. Yeah, they're different rules, but who cares? It's still a rigid system. We've got great dogma that says otherwise, but otherwise. So right now in software, we have this problem where no one is taking responsibility for their own process, for their own culture, or for anything else. They're just trying to be agile, or they're trying to do Kanban, or they're trying to do whatever, but they're not trying to do them. Right? So anytime somebody comes along and does something innovative, a bunch of other people come and they try and sound exactly like them.
Yeah.
So in the 80s were great for that. You would have one band that sounded a certain way, and then you'd have 25 bands show up the next day that sounded exactly like them. And that's what we're trying to do right now. We are not living authentically. And so the problem with this is that when we're trying to focus on being agile, we're not focused on code quality. We're just focused on being a strong team of plus or minus 2. But what we're not doing is being focused, now we want to be like enterprise agile, but the team is still focused on plus or minus 2.
Yeah.
Well, the company's plus 7,000, right? And if you don't start thinking as a team about the other 6,992 people that are in the company, you're going to keep making shit. And the more you do that, the more we're going to keep crashing 737s into the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Right now, we're migrating to a new platform for Modus Institute. And it is the best piece of software I've ever used, except for the music, the one that I record music on, which remains the best piece of software I've ever used. So Ableton Live and this new platform that we're working on, Learn Worlds. And why is it good? Because the people there really care about the product. The group obviously cares about each other. And when they say they're going to do something, they do it. They're unbelievably conscientious. And we have been so bitten by both this process angst and the .com era bloat and float world that we as a software development community have fundamentally historically been disinterested in quality.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And it kills me. So many really cool projects I've seen that have been killed by, just flat out greed or just not caring. So that's the one I'm going to take there, Mr. Selberg. What do you if you want to add one to that, go right ahead. But you're right. I could have taken my pick. There were many to go with.
There's a number you could have. Look, and I focus a lot on that. I draw lines with that, Jim, because and again we were chatting about it that agile governance is something that's quite big for me, and I get called a heretic.
Yep.
There's no governance. You don't need governance in agile, and the conversation I have to have is, well, we're not talking about PMOs and projects and etc. We're talking about how you govern the system as a whole and thinking about actually how you affect that. And building quality is as much part of your governing the system as it is just thinking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we could probably go for another week on this. Unfortunately, we're actually at the end of our time.
Oh,
in saying that, we've got a lot of comments there, and I thank everybody for being part of those comments. And Jim, you might want to jump on and maybe respond to those. I might respond to some of those off this on the platforms. I think they're mostly on LinkedIn.
Oh, sure.
the other thing with that is I'd like to put you on the spot and say, would you like to come back again, and we can do another session that's more around those kind of things as well, because I think there's some really great conversation to be had there.
I would love to. I think that what we should probably do is find a way to get me to come down there. We can go to the Gold Coast. We can put some cameras up and have something a bit more, a little less staring at the camera and more hanging out.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome, Jim. You're always welcome. Look, it's been fantastic having you at Talking Remote. Thanks those that have been listening. If you're listening and you're not part of our community, remoteaf.co, click on the community button, join us. We're talking about all things remote. We've got a great community there that are challenging. They love the kind of conversation we've just had today, as you can see. Jim, thank you for being on Talking Remote today, and thank you for all those people who joined today.
Thanks, everyone.